Hey everyone, it's Tom Kradza, and listen, I don't even know where to start with this podcast. Pierre-Paul Turgeon is someone who speaks from his heart. He is back. We had so much feedback from his first podcast on Alberta, what's going on with energy prices and multi-unit investing out there, that he's been in town recently, so we brought him in for another podcast recording. Great guy. We cover the gamut. We go through all the updates on Alberta energy. He's so passionate about it. I think this guy's got to go into politics at some point. We're big fans of his. And then we get into apartment buildings and what he's seeing in cap rates out there. So I think if you're an Ontario investor, you can learn a lot from this, just from what's going on in Alberta and how it's affecting that real estate market, and then just generically some apartment building stuff and the lessons someone who owns a portfolio out there, what they're going through. So updates on the whole bit. He runs workshops throughout Canada, all throughout the year. So if you want to grab on his email list, he's a good guy. He really is trying to help everyone he deals with. We're big fans of Pierre-Paul, just like talking to the guy. And if you are listening to this and you're wondering what Rockstar Real Estate is about, listen, I want to explain something. We started this entire business, the Rockstar Inner Circle, the membership that we run, because Nick and I had invested in some training that was done by U.S. trainers who came up to Canada years ago. We're talking about a couple decades ago at this point. And they taught us some real estate investing information that really didn't apply to us in Canada. And then after the training, they kind of just vanish and disappear. And we thought, after years of doing our own investing, wouldn't it be nice to have people who were on the streets, not just talking theory, but on the streets, helping us with our real estate investments, and we couldn't find those people. So we decided to launch Rockstar Inner Circle and Rockstar Real Estate as a brokerage to be those people. And I know that sounds crazy, but it was just because we were scratching our own itch. And that's why we started this whole business. We are investors who started a real estate membership and a real estate brokerage for other investors. And that's how this business is born. And if you want to learn more about the membership and how it works and why it's working, you can get all the benefits. They're all listed out at rockstarinnercircle.com/member. So if you go to rockstarinnercircle.com/member, you will see all the benefits that you get as a Rockstar Inner Circle member. One of the things is 3 times a year we run some of these bigger events. We just had 700 people at it. So we're really grateful that we're able to try and offer as much value as so that 700 people would show up at these things. We've been doing this for some time now. We're just grateful that it's all worked out the way it has. But that's where to learn more about the membership. It's rockstarinnercircle.com/member. And with that, let's get on with the show.
Are you ready to live life on your terms? Is it time to take charge? Real estate, business building, the economy, health and nutrition, and more. It's the Your Life, Your Term Show with Tom and Nick Kradza. Are you ready? Let's go.
Okay, I have Pierre-Paul Turgeon. I like saying your last name, but how do you say your last name?
Turgeon.
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 Close enough. Close enough.
Man,
Tom.
I can't do it.
Oh,
you know
you
how
can.
bad I
You're
was
doing
at
great.
French? You know how bad I was at French in school?
No, tell me.
It was horrible. I was horrible. I could say, je m'appelle Tom. That was pretty much it. But Pierre-Paul, you are the most passionate guy. You are so passionate about oil and gas in Alberta. You are so passionate about multi-unit investing. You are just so passionate about life. You are a rare breed of person. Somebody called you. You just told me, and I want you to repeat it. Is it the Stoic investor?
Correct.
The Stoic investor. Why did they say that about? Because you brought out this gratitude rock that you have right in front of me.
I do. My little rock from the shores of Lake Titicaca. Of course, I do. Because I'm grateful to be here with you doing this.
Where's that lake?
In Peru, the highest navigable body of water in the world. I'm trying to remember the altitude must be 2,000-3,000 meters of altitude.
Can you jump in this thing and swim around?
I did.
No?
Very cold. Yeah.
Really?
You shrink, you shrivel once you get into the water. Yeah. And I won't say any more, but you read between the lines.
Yeah.
My son did. He was 18, so obviously he can tolerate the. Yeah, it's all water from the Andes. Very cool place.
When did you go?
4 years ago. This is an adventure trip with my son. We went trekking to Machu Picchu with our private guide, 2 cooks, a horseman with 3 horses. All you carry is your day pack. But you get up there, 4,600 meters in altitude, Salcantay Pass.
So how long does it take to get up 4,600 meters?
It took us, we started a bit higher. Mind you, there's a road, but it took us, it was a 5-day trek altogether, all the way to Machu Picchu, 75 kilometers.
Yeah, beautiful though.
Oh,
right?
awesome.
I see the pictures.
Awesome. It's like a safari kind of a format of the trek, like I said, with the private cooks and a tent in the kitchen one side, then the dining room next door. Freaking amazing. And then we went mountain biking to Bolivia. In between.
Mountain biking in Bolivia?
Death Road. That's what it's called.
I want to go on death
I
road.
am telling you, 4,600 meters of altitude, same difference, same altitude. And
But please tell me you were just going down the whole time.
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
the bus takes you up
that
on
is
mountain
so
bikes.
fun.
I'm telling you, waterfalls. Listen.
Oh
Tom,
my God! I did this
like
in California.
adventure.
I did this in California a few years ago. And as I was coming down one of the hills, there was literally oil coming out of the side of one of the hills at one point. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm going down. There's oil fields.
Grab your
and then
jerry
later,
can.
Totally. And then later I was further down this kind of hill mountain. It's not a mountain, but like a big hill, and ripping down there. And there's some cows out to pasture. And I'm just like, this is here I am on my mountain bike racing down this hill.
It's amazing.
And I did see people coming up the hill who I thought were
that's
I
crazy.
have full, I'm totally impressed by those people, but I was just ripping down this thing. So happy. But to do what you did. So you also did that on the same trip with your 18?
Yeah, it's in between. We stopped by Lake Titicaca, great little place on the shore of Lake Titicaca.
And that's where you got the rock.
I got the rock.
You're allowed
We
to
went
take
swimming.
the rock. You're allowed to take the rocks.
Yeah, but
from
this
there?
one is special. You got to stick your nose down to the beach. They're all bigger pebbles, right? It's not sand,
The
right?
color of that,
It's
like,
amazing
that's like,
stone.
what is that like? I'm colorblind, so is that
I
a
don't-
brown?
It's got brown, green, red,
It's beautiful.
and gray. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
beautiful.
But I always, you said earlier before we started recording, life is what is it? You've got something.
I have 10 ounces of silver that I consider
It's a skull.
It's a skull. It's in the shape of a skull because it's a precious metal silver.
Yeah.
And what I use this to remind people, think I like having it around just because it's silver, which I do like having precious metals around.
Yeah.
But to me, this represents life, right? Because life is precious.
Yep.
And then it's in the form of a skull because life is short. So we live this precious life, and it's a short life, and I use this 10-ounce skull to remind me that it's a precious thing that we have in our hands.
Well, it's the same idea why you have this rock, Tom, because that's one of the things I'm grateful for.
People are going to think
I
we're really
lost my
cheesy
best-
right now, Pierre-Paul, but I believe in this 100%.
Listen,
Yeah.
neurofreaking scientists have figured this out. Being in a state of gratefulness is part of being happy, becoming happy. But I lost my best buddy at 16, actually, while I was down in South America after we graduated from high school. And that's when I learned the precious lesson, that life is precious. And to this day, in honor of my best buddy when we were 16, I carry this stone. It just died of cancer.
Jeez.
But I was having one of the best years of my life. I was doing a student exchange program in South America and Brazil. And he passed away while I was gone. So it's something that it still hurts all these, 40-some years ago. Oh my gosh, I'm old. Whew, okay, but I got more hair than you. I hate to tell you, Tom,
do.
but
I'm losing hair. I'm losing hair. The
as long as you don't lose your mind, we're
Listen,
good.
The guy that cuts my hair, I always say, why don't I get it cut?
I shouldn't bug you about your hair. I could be in that position.
No,
I'm sorry.
oh my gosh, I don't care at all. And I tell the guy who cuts my hair, I'm like, I should be getting cheaper prices. Why are the prices going up? And you know what he tells me? He said it's harder for me to figure out what to do with your hair, so I have to charge you more. So,
but you got the muscles. I got the hair. You got the muscles. So we're good. We're even.
So tell me, what's the latest? Listen, because of you, I got to tell you something.
Me too.
Okay, we recorded this podcast. I had no idea you were going to be so passionate about the oil and gas industry in Alberta. You actually, if anyone's listening to this that hasn't listened to the first time that we chatted with Pierre-Paul, has it only been one time? I feel like it's been more, but the previous time in January, you not only shared really insightful information about multi-unit apartment building investing, which we're going to talk about here, but the state of Alberta and oil and gas industry that you got me reading up on it. And then now I understand a few things. I understand that some American companies look like they're proactively trying to thwart some of the developments by Alberta by buying up. I don't know if exactly they're buying up different companies and then just sitting on them and not doing anything. And everyone seems to debate exactly what's happening and what's not happening. But there's this U.S. element that seems to be kind of against Alberta. But then there's also the BC, and I don't know if it's the BC government, but I didn't understand there's already a pipeline going from Alberta, and it looks like it's taking the exact route that Alberta wants to add an additional pipeline to. So the environmental impact to me must be somewhat I don't want to say negligible, but reduced if there's already a line going. And if this is going to help the province of Alberta, but it seems like there's some squabbling between BC and Alberta over this pipeline, and all of this is basically hurting the oil and gas industry in Alberta. Is what's the latest? Is it still depressed out there, the whole oil and gas industry?
Yeah, I figured you would ask me that question.
Because I had people, literally people in Ontario saying, we got to read up more about it. You have to understand what's going on there. It's affecting all of us in Canada. I was shocked by the feedback we got.
Okay.
On that particular podcast probably got some of the most feedback of any of the podcasts.
Wow,
that we've
that's
done.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, so thank you so much for, again, the opportunity to be back here with you. First of all, I got to tell you, so as a result of that podcast, I need to tell you something very freaking cool. If I were sitting in your shoes now and I would hear what I'm about to tell you, I'd feel very proud, you and Nick. People came up, I spoke recently the last couple of months in Saskatoon and in Calgary, and people came up to me that heard your podcast and came up to me to thank me for what I said to you in this podcast in January. How freaking humbling is that?
That's cool.
And it was spontaneous, right? We sat across each other doing this podcast, and I started getting into it, and I hopefully
so they must,
a little bit more today.
They must feel, they're thanking you because they must feel the message isn't getting out.
It's
and
not
you're
getting
representing them and all of us in what you're kind of saying and sharing.
And that's if I were younger, maybe dumber, I would run for office because I love Canada. This is not just about Alberta, and that's what I was trying to share with you, and hopefully I'd like to add a little bit to that. But yeah, that debate is still ongoing. So we're talking about the Trans Mountain Pipeline. It's been in existence since 1953. There's been no environmental issues, and all we're talking about is a twinning of it, so having another one parallel to it. So that's what we're asking. Yeah, it still is a big issue, but you know how much they're paying a liter of gas in Vancouver? Because I've been out there 4 times.
What is it?
$1.70.
Yeah, wow.
And it ain't over. It's going to get worse. So there you go.
And so why are they paying? Why are they paying so much?
Well, because we're sort of shutting down the valve to oil, but also because they're getting it from nice places, like Russia, where they have super high environmental standards. So those tankers are off Vancouver. They bring their oil to them, so it's very costly.
So
and also lack of refinery.
People who are trying to protect Canada, instead of shipping it from next door, we're shipping it from Russia.
You got
How much energy are we taking to ship it?
And where do you think you get your oil here in GTA and Quebec and Eastern Canada?
Where?
Oh, lovely places with beautiful human rights. Sorry, the sarcasm here, but like Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, where they kidnap young women, use them as sex slaves and children's soldiers, and all these places, Tom. Mm-hmm.
So when you say you're shutting off the valve for BC, do you mean Alberta is purposely saying screw it?
Yeah,
okay,
you're not political means, but
but are they shutting it off to Ontario as well?
No.
Now with your new premier, I feel like your new premier and Doug Ford, I feel like they're best buddies. I feel like they're best buddies.
Yeah, just let's get rid of Justin, and then this country should be doing better.
Wow, we're getting totally political right now, but I don't know if we can get rid of our selfie prime. He is the selfie king.
Oh my gosh!
But yeah, we'll just stop there. Okay. Tell me. So has there been any new developments, or is it just the same story that's progressing forward and continuing, and nothing has happened positively?
We're going to have a federal election. So obviously our new premier in Alberta is holding off, doesn't want to cause problems for Andrew Scheer. And by the way, it's not like I'm so much partisan, to be honest with you. I'm not in love with Andrew Scheer, I'll say that much. Neither am I with, what's his name, Jason Kenney in Alberta. But somebody's got to run the show, right? Somebody's got to run the country. So he's going to be a little bit quiet. But I think, was it today that they repealed the carbon tax in Alberta? If it's not hasn't happened, it will happen Monday, I think. So in the next few days, anyways. What is it today? We're the 23rd. So I think it's going to happen by next week, Monday, if I'm not mistaken. But within a matter of days. So that's one thing that's going to go on. Listen, capital is fleeing this country. I know you're good at macroeconomics. I love it. I'm not nearly as good as you and knowledgeable, but I'm training myself to, overall in Canada, because of Justin Trudeau, we're losing capitals fleeing this country. There's no, that.
Agreed.
Like people are dumping their Canadian bonds. I mean, you know
our,
more about this
our
stuff.
Regulations,
our
tax structures,
everything.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Tax. Right. I mean, so that's another thing he's going to do as well. Jason Kenney is going to lower corporate taxes back to slowly to 8%. They're now at 13%. So it's a big hit. So from a real estate point of view, Tom, and I vouch for multifamily properties, but if you're asking me, we have not yet seen the worst in Alberta. So we're still in the dumps. Our economy, very, very much so. Everybody's suffering. Junior oil and gas companies are going belly up. My portfolio, from a real estate point of view, I think I share with you, we've been having to give rental discounts in the vicinity or order of about $200 per unit per month. Imagine that. Meanwhile, do you think my expenses went down? No, they haven't. So it's a tough thing because we don't have in-migration anymore. We don't have a lot of job creation. We've lost hundreds of thousands of jobs in Alberta. So it's still going on. It's still bad. But the point I'd like to, we all, and the reason why I do this is I love this country. Like I have a love for this country.
Tell. It comes through. I think you should get into politics.
No, but do I want to be associated with a bunch of buffoons? For crying out loud, Tom. No, that's the only thing holding me back. I have the right stuff, I think, but anyway, the point is it's not just an Alberta crisis. Just that's the one thing, I'm reading here. I'm not going to read everything, but Alberta's problems hurt Ontario. Here's how. Because, of course, we engage in a lot of trade between Alberta and Ontario. And so if there's no trade, everybody's suffering, right? It's our GDP. We feed really the coffers of the federal government. So there's stuff like that. So
you're saying in this article that you had brought with you from the Fraser Institute, it looks like you're saying just because trade has slowed down between the two, because we're not trading energy back and forth, both sides are hurting.
Among other things, and we're not sending as much money to the federal government. Our deficit is over $19 billion, Tom. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. So the point is, and I don't want to beleaguer that topic, but people have to remember this is not just an Alberta crisis. It's a national crisis. And remember, I said this to you and nobody was talking about a crisis.
Agreed.
Shortly after, it became...
Almost like the next week or 2 weeks, right after you were talking about it. This was in January of this year. I hadn't barely even heard of this.
That's my point.
No, you were calling out. I give you full credit for this. But here's why I think it's a little bit of a weird issue for people in Ontario. In Ontario, we have such an influx. Canada's target for immigration last year was 310,000 people. Mm-hmm. Okay. We took in about 425,000. So somehow the federal government can't do math really well, or whoever's managing it over there. Yep. I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm just saying this is what was our target. My parents are immigrants. I'm definitely not anti-immigrant. I just mean we had this target of 310. I'm going to get to my point here in a second. Instead, we brought in 425,000 people. 43% of all immigrants come to Ontario. A huge percentage of that 43% lands in the GTA or Southern Ontario here. So in Ontario, we are in a weird situation where we have a massive influx of population, absolutely massive. And GDP, if you go to the any university and you study economics, they'll always talk about GDP has two inputs. It has labor and it has capital. So we have all this labor coming in. But because of the U.S. financial situation, they've kept interest rates so low for so long. We also have cheap access to capital in this country because we mimic the U.S. Our interest rates are so low. Yep. So we have a massive influx of labor, but we also have cheap capital. Mm-hmm. And what that happens in the GTA, it provides for a perfect storm of economic growth. So if you're here, sometimes you scratch your head when you're like, well, what's actually happening in Alberta? Do you know what I mean? Because here, there's buildings being built and condos being, and there's growth. Jobs being created. But I think we all have to understand that as a country, even though it's kind of booming right here, right now, as a country, we're suffering. And when we don't pay attention to some things as big as Alberta,
this is big.
I think we're doing all of our, it's kind of like short-term things are booming, but long-term things could be better. Like we have to play the long game here, and we have to develop Alberta properly. And I'm not saying I know the proper way to develop Alberta. I don't. I'm clueless when it comes to energy and gas. But when I read about things, how like U.S. companies get involved and kind of, they're a little nefarious in some of their decision-making, like buying Canadian companies, it seems like, and then purposely not developing some of these oil and energy projects so that they don't compete with some of the Texas projects and stuff like that. And I don't know if I'm right on that. You correct me if I'm wrong. This is stuff I've read.
I don't know if that happens. What's been happening is you've got the Rockefeller Foundation, right? And Rockefeller
that's right. I was reading about this.
Made money on oil and gas, funding environmentalists like the Tides Foundation.
I was reading about this.
This is very factual.
Can you just fill us in on that?
That's what it is. It's oil and gas, U.S. oil and gas companies that have been funding, like namely the Rockefeller Foundation. We don't need, everybody knows about the Rockefeller and John D. Rockefeller. I think I told you I read his I read his biography 27 hours on Audible. John D. Rockefeller, pretty cool.
A thick book. Yeah.
Anyways, but the point is they're funding environmentalists up to come and destroy the oil and gas industry in Canada so that they get our oil cheaper, because we only have basically two customers, right? We have the U.S. and that's kind of it. It's our main customer. So we've been selling at a discount. That discount the last few weeks has widened. It's ridiculous, Tom. If we were to sell...
So basically what you're saying is that this oil and gas the Rockefeller Foundation basically is funding environmentalists who will negatively portray the Canadian oil and gas industry. And they're doing that in the U.S. for their own benefit, because if they are portrayed negatively up here, stuff will not get developed. And then they have less competition from us with their American counterparts.
Correct. They're buying our oil so cheaply. So they're making money on our backs.
We got to play dirty. We're too nice up here.
No,
we're too nice.
First of all, we got to hold together as a country. All right, we do have this.
I just
amazing.
think we need to roll up our sleeves and play dirty. No, but you're right. Yeah, you're right. Sorry,
you're the guy with
right.
the muscles, not me. But that's not my approach.
No, you're right. You're right.
You know, we've heard this great article that I read this morning, and it's important. I feel passionate about it because I love Canada, right? But what's happened? You know the importance of social media and the internet and the fake news. We all know now this is not a joke, right? They interfered with the U.S. election, right? Well, it's also the internet. This is an article called "The Internet Killed the Oil Industry in Canada,"
and
right?
What's the premise of that one?
Well, so that the premise is that it's so easy now. And the oil
to change the narrative to
change. I could go on through a bunch of stuff, right? That oil, you know, when there's a spill, it sinks. You can't clean it up because it doesn't float. BS. It does. First of all, I mean, I could go on. It's a full article. I can post this and send it to you if people really want to dig into it. But that's what we're dealing. Those environmentalists have figured out their younger population. By the way, they wear a lot of fleece and all stuff that you need oil and, and they fly to these demonstrations and all that jazz. No, but it's the hypocrisy I cannot stand, Tom. Like, I show up in Toronto here. Like, you know what amazes me? And I don't miss that. People may know or not. I used to live in, I went to school in U of T, learned English, as a matter of fact, in Ontario. But when you show up here, and I live in the country, appreciate that. I have chickens, I have omega-3,
when you see this city.
The mountain, and I show up here, holy crap. I mean, the energy, the traffic on the 401,
my God.
And all of that, it takes freaking gas, it takes oil, folks. Let's stop. So are we going to buy it from somebody else that's going to make a profit on our backs? That's what's going on. And people like being so morally so perfect, like, we don't want to pollute. Where what the hell did the city of Montreal dumping how much sewage water in the St. Lawrence River, or the city of Victoria and Vancouver? Like, come on, you guys. I could go on, Tom. We are being manipulated.
Who from Alberta is doing the job of educating Ontarians? Because I think Ontario.
Pierre-Paul.
No, it seems like it. You are an unfunded volunteer workforce flying over to Ontario on your own dollar to sit on this podcast to teach us all about what's going on in Alberta.
I do want to talk about real estate, but
we
important. Like Tom, just let me give you a few examples, right? There's Bill C-48, which was shot down by the Senate last week in a review. It still might come back. That's the moratorium, Bill C-48, about preventing tankers from, coming to the West Coast, right, near Vancouver. Well, because it's killing the whales, so they say. BS again. Guess where 61% of maritime traffic takes place in Canada? Do you think it's on the West Coast or maybe the St. Lawrence River? Do you think there are whales there? Do you hear anybody say anything about that? Here's the thing. This is just one falsity that I just want to, as an example, and of course we got to get off the wagon here,
stay on the wagon. It's fun sometimes.
Well, if you like it, don't search me. You're gonna get me. I'm gonna go there.
I've never.
But seriously, what's most damaging for the whales on the West Coast? Guess what it is? It's not those few tankers. It's all the whale watchers. You know the little boats? Have you been to the West Coast and watched the whales? It's all the freaking ferries that go back and forth between Vancouver and the island of Vancouver, man. Worse than that, the data that was used to prepare Bill C-48 was dating back from the 70s. That's why one of our independent senators from Alberta shot it down. It barely won, but it was rejected at this point.
That's frustrating to hear, because I find in today's world it's so tough to get to the truth of really anything. And I'll give you an example. Everyone talks about electric cars and how they are environmentally friendly, but I hear no one talking about the environmental impact that's required to produce the electric car. And then on the life cycle of the electric car, what happens to the batteries after those cars are no longer going to be used? And I'm not trying to sit here and say they're bad. All I'm saying is that when you look at the entire supply chain from the beginning to the end on the life cycle of an electric car, how different really is it from existing supply chains where we're able to maybe recycle a lot of the components of gas-powered cars? And I'm not sitting here saying gas is number one and batteries are bad. Far from it. I drive a vehicle that is half gas and a little bit of a battery. I just mean that it's hard to get to the truth sometimes, because when I think of these things, I'm like, who can I even really go to really break down such analysis? Because if you go to the guys who are pro-electric, they're always just going to slam everything on the gas side. And if you go to the gas side, I feel like they're just going to slam the electric side. It's really hard anymore in today's world to get anyone who's in the center. You know, and as much as passionate as you are about this stuff, I find that you are actually in the center. You're willing to talk and consider both sides.
Oh, absolutely. But that's what I said to you the last time we did this podcast. The debate is too polarized, but we're using fake news, Tom. Like this, what's happened, you're right. What's happened, that's part of the internet and social media. Those younger fellows, environmentalists, have figured out how to use it. People don't read papers. Remember in the old days when there was a newspaper, physical paper with actual paper in your hands? Well, before you put out an article in a newspaper, you had fact checkers. Now that information is, disseminated like that without any checking facts. That's what I deplore. But there is stuff. It's like the phenomenon, I can't remember exactly how to express it, but when you start paying attention to something, now you start to see that information. That's really one of the key things why I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to talk about that. That information, I've got a bunch of articles I brought with me here for you today that talks about that. That information is out there, but you got to be educated. But the key thing is, it's not just Alberta. This is a Canadian crisis. Our federal deficit is increasing. But the problem
and you
is,
keep bringing that point up because you feel by lack of sales of energy from the province of Alberta, we are all hindering ourselves in the tax revenues we could be collecting for our own country.
Correct.
And because of that, we're just driving our debt and deficits further and further, which we really don't have to if we were just operating efficiently with this country.
What I'm saying exactly, it's hospitals, it's infrastructure.
Because those tax dollars would
go to Ottawa and they're redistributed, right? It's the equalization payments. And of course,
So what is Alberta, what do you feel, and I don't even know if you know this answer, but what is Alberta not getting from the federal government that it should be getting right now? Like, what kind of support is it not? Like, what?
Well, I mean, so Bill C-48 was one lack of support, right? Because it doesn't make sense. It's just the data is not there. The scientific data is not there to support that, first of all. And secondly, obviously, it's the pipeline. Like, what people seem to forget.
Because that pipeline would do what?
Everything. Well,
it would allow export
access to tide waters to the West Coast.
Okay, so because then Alberta could get,
diversify their markets.
Okay,
have more clients.
So it's oil from Alberta.
Yeah.
Natural gas and oil?
Both.
Let's say energy.
Yeah.
Okay, from
Alberta.
Alberta.
Gas, mostly oil.
Mostly oil from Alberta.
But also we have an LNG line. So, but let's say oil for now, because we don't have a problem with natural gas. We will have a pipeline for that, northern Alberta. So it's oil.
So it's oil to the West Coast,
correct,
which then opens up exporting it to the world.
And get world frickin' prices for it, Tom, instead of selling at a discounted price to the U.S., because that's the only client, pretty much customer we have.
And the U.S. is, because I think sometimes when I read about Alberta oil, they'll say, well, Alberta oil is a different kind of grade or whatever, so it requires more processing.
It's a little bit more expensive, yeah. It's heavy oil.
But they obviously are still buying it. They can process it.
Of course, that's not an issue. That's not the issue. It's not processing the issue. I mean, there is an issue that we don't have.
The U.S. companies are just getting it on the cheap right now, and they're making it like bandits.
We're idiots. We're acting like idiots. We're not standing up for ourselves. You know, Canadians have a reputation.
How pissed is everybody in Alberta right now?
Tom, I want to reiterate this. We're in the shit. Like in Alberta, it's still very bad. My portfolio is suffering. Okay, what our real estate market, mind you, it's part of being a single industry kind of economy, right? Or too heavily reliant on one resource, which is oil. But what we're experiencing in Alberta, like I've got a good sense and knowledge of Canada from Quebec all the way to the West Coast. Okay, not so much the Maritimes, but what our real estate market is experiencing as a result of the downturn of the oil industry would not happen anywhere else. Like some years you may not get as much appreciation and all of that,
sure,
right? But we're talking negative appreciation, right? We're talking valuations have come down because the fundamentals are all broken. And you would never have such a dire and lasting this long. Like Tom, when I buy a building, I follow a certain model where I have a contingency fund in place. You and I used to know RAIN, right? 3 months of mortgage payments as a
yeah.
Well,
being
after
prudent.
2, 3 years, 4 years, it's
eat into that
a long time ago, because then we compete with large landlords that have deeper pockets. There's some of them are slumlords.
Opportunities, yeah.
Well, of course they want to buy us for 90 cents on the dollar type of thing. But so so everybody is suffering. The economy, if people don't know this, in Alberta is still reeling. It has not recovered, and I don't see any sign yet. 2019 is a write-off, and most of 2020.
You think so?
I know.
That's
I know
unfortunate
so.
because I see
know
some
so.
articles about Alberta kind of making fun of Alberta, but it's almost Albertans doing this to themselves because there'll be some articles saying, well, we haven't diversified the economy in Alberta beyond oil and gas. And they'll quote articles like Dallas and say, if you look at Dallas in Texas and you look at their industry, it's been diversified. They have some more financial markets and stuff like
Absolutely.
that. But my point to that is that it's such an easy excuse to make because you can just point the finger and say, well, we really should have diversified. But
which
it
is
kind of
true. I agree.
which is true, but it deflects the whole argument or diminishes the argument a little bit because then you're saying, well, we can't really blame the oil and gas industry, or we can't blame the federal government, we can't blame these pipelines. But if you're sitting on this resource, and if you're telling me that British Columbia is paying $1.70 for a liter of gas, and then the American companies are buying our oil, which means they like it, they can do something with it, and they're buying it on the cheap. It kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit. You can make all sorts of counter arguments because you could say, I guess, that the only reason the Americans are buying it is because it is cheap and they have to process it more, so they would never buy it if it was at like fair market value or whatever. So I know there's two sides to all this, but I just feel like we're neglecting a little bit of a national treasure out there, and it's hurting. It's hurting all of us. And I think in Ontario, we don't hear the message because we're so busy and booming, and there's 20 lanes of traffic on the 401 by Yorkdale Mall, and nobody can get anywhere. And we got our own problems out here. Everyone out here is
But you need oil for move all these people around. You need energy. The one thing that's another article, and I'll just give you the highlights, obviously, actually buying more Canadian oil will actually help the environment. Do you want to know why? Because we have the highest environmental norms around the freaking world. So more cleaner oil. Like they've improved by rates of, I think, in the range of 27%, the environmental impacts. Like we're a world leader in, exploiting oil in a clean way. Tom.
Yeah, sure. You're putting all these charts in front of me that's proving this. I can't show anyone these charts over a voice podcast, but I didn't know
this is what I'm saying to you, and let's just work as a country together. Let's be strong and let's show the world. But and again, these charts, let's refer to it, right? This one here says that since 1990, oil sands producers reduced per barrel emissions by an average of 26%. Some achieved reductions as high as 50%. And oil sands, there's a chart which we can give you. You can put it on the website if you want. But oil sands represent 0.15% of global emissions. Okay? This is what it means, okay? Let's not be hypocritical. We need this. We need to make a transition. You know that, yes, I believe I'm middle of the ground from the political spectrum. Mm-hmm. I'm super environmental. Like I'm the guy that puts a backpack on. I'm 56. I will do that until as long as my body will allow me to do that.
You're going to Peru and Bolivia.
There you go. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm fairly fit. Don't have like big muscles like you, but I'm fit. I remind me to tell you about where I'm off next week because it's a healthy kind of trip and crazy. I've never done anything like this. I'm still feeling weird about that one. But the point is, health matters to me, how I eat and all of that stuff. So environment is everything to me. Yes, we need to move away from fossil fuels, of course, but it won't happen overnight. We have been hijacked by environmentalists that knew how to use the internet and social media with fake news. Bottom line, Tom, this is it.
Some environmentalists hearing this right now are just hating both of us.
Listen, let's go to the even this morning I was reading something put out. Like
you have more articles
IMF.
and more highlighting in front of you. Yeah.
Well,
you know what? You have an IMF article in front of you. I think I know which one you have. I haven't read this one yet. This just came out.
This one that is putting out fake data, like making assumptions, that Canada is subsidizing the oil industry. Baloney, that's not what's going on. But it's falsehood like that we're dealing with. We're being hijacked. We're being hijacked. We're the most amazing country in the world.
I feel now with your election, your provincial election passed, and maybe with a federal election coming up, maybe Alberta will kind of turn it around. What's this one?
No, but the same is said about the whales that, the whales are not impacted as much as the ferry. I swear.
I don't even know how to, you have so many articles in front of me. I don't even know how to link out to all that. We'll choose some of these articles. I'll put links in the show. If you're listening to this, you can go to rockstarnerdcircle.com/podcast. And on Pierre-Paul's podcast episode, we'll have links to some of them. He has so many articles in front of me. I don't even know if I can link out to all these, but we will link to the. We will link to the. Do you have your own website with collections of these articles?
No, I should start that.
You should start this one. This is your passion project on the side.
Well, I just love this country, folks. Like you, I'm well traveled and travel regularly. We need to stand up for Canada. This is
I
an
believe.
amazing
I mean,
place.
it's part of the reason I talk about what I talk about and owning assets and stuff. I believe Canada's such a great country.
Yep.
It gives such a good standard of living to people who want to come here and contribute and pay taxes.
Yep.
That if we all do our fair share, it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. The weather, maybe not so much.
Well,
but,
better here than Alberta.
well, no, but in Alberta you have mountains. So at
Well,
least if it's snowing, I can go to a mountain.
east of it is the
You know
desert.
what we have? I have Blue Mountain, which
Yeah.
is a hill.
yeah, it's
Okay,
a hill.
that we
call
kind of
that a
name
hill.
out.
My word, we call that a hill.
And I love Blue Mountain. I go there all the time. I'm not against Blue Mountain. I just mean let's face it. We don't have much in Quebec. At least I have some mountains. But anyway, so I
Enough of
want
the
to
rent on the
I want to
oil, or-
switch over to the apartment building
Yeah.
stuff. So it's still negative. You're down $200
Per unit per month on average.
Per month
Yeah.
on average.
So-
the average rent would be now on. So it was.
Well, you know, there's no such a thing. Depends where and
No,
what
I
and
know.
which
I'm
pocket
just
of the
trying to
market.
paint the
That's
picture.
that's
But you're
a trick
talking
question.
you're talking apartment building rent. We're not-
On average, let's say, on average, but every market is different. Rents tend to be higher in Calgary. My portfolio's in Edmonton.
Okay.
But I tell you what, there's always how you frame things. It's always a choice, right?
You're making me want to. I never wanted to cheer for Alberta hockey teams because I'm a Toronto Maple Leaf fan. But now with all this stuff going on, I feel like I got to cheer for. I have to. There's been a soft spot in my heart for Edmonton Oilers because as a Leaf fan, I can completely relate to like horrible management and what's going on. So I can kind of relate to the Edmonton Oilers right now, which is like a sad thing. So it's kind of making me want to cheer for them more than I ever have. And Calgary Flames, I've never really felt sorry for, but now I'm feeling that I need to cheer for the Calgary Flames and the Edmonton Oilers. Maybe they can be my like second teams.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they're the underdog on what's going on, and everybody cheering for them out there needs some support. But so it's still happening out there where people are.
Yeah.
You're not having a population influx. You're still having people
we've
leave
lost
Alberta.
population. It's growing a little bit. It's kind of cool. Actually, if you look at the overall numbers, we are growing, but half of it is new births. People are making babies. People are making love and making babies. Half of them.
That's good.
Half
Nothing
of
else-
the
nothing
demographic
else to
growth
do,
is
yeah.
put tenants in my freaking buildings,
yeah.
Tom. But the rest, we're getting international migration. But as things are improving a little bit, the numbers, but hardly. Like it's like I said, we expect that. We're
And
real
that's
estate
why you
investors,
think 2020 is a write-off as well.
as
because
well.
it's just
as
changing
well. I
too
mean,
slowly.
look, to build a freaking pipeline doesn't happen overnight. Like to open up new markets like that, it doesn't happen overnight. Like I said, the confidence, and people need to understand this impacts the whole of Canada. Like I said, capital has been fleeing,
So
Canada.
you think if
so
this
it's going to take a
pipeline
while
was
for
built-
that confidence to return, is what I'm
if
saying.
this pipeline was built between
Yeah.
Alberta and BC and over to the
Yeah.
West Coast,
Yeah.
you think that alone?
Oh no,
could-
there's no doubt. Do you know how we carry the oil now out of Alberta now? By train. I think we talked about that the last podcast. We're back on the oil business. Sorry.
No. Well, it affects the apartment building business kind of directly.
So, but it's transported by train, which travel. In river valleys, right? Do you think a spill would be extremely damaging if you have a train derailment? Huge. It's way worse.
Especially in our, next to our river.
Anyways, but so that it will take time. Lack of diversity. I believe, and I hang out with freaking oil-rich folks. I vacation with them, and I sometimes tell them, like, you guys did a poor PR job, which they
really
have.
did. Do they know that?
But is there interest? What my friend replies to me, is there interest from the media, let's even in Eastern Ontario, to listen to that? Not really, because now the winning side, to a large extent due to some history and bad fake news and all of that, is like the oil companies are all bad people. I just gave you stats that shows that we're some of the leaders in environmentally friendly technologies and all of that, right? So that's the image you're battling against. But I think they could have done a better job of that. So hopefully, I know through the grapevine, and it's not official in the newspapers, but I got a buddy who goes to the Petroleum Club in downtown Calgary, so I have some intel. That's not anywhere, but they're working on that. You know what? Remember, is it the guy? What's the guy that used to do documentary Moore, like the fat guy?
Yeah.
If I had that skill, I would.
Roger Moore?
Yeah, Roger Moore. I would
Moore?
do a documentary like that to just to put some of these fake news out of there. But it's going to take a while.
I don't think you're allowed to call anybody fat anymore, Pierre-Paul. I think you have to say
I
that
am
he's.
so
I don't know the
politically-
I don't know the politically correct. That's because where were you born?
I'm very.
Were you born in Quebec?
Yes.
I feel like if you're born in Quebec, I guess that would be politically incorrect for me to say what I'm about to say. Man, you can't say anything anymore. I don't know what to say, so we can't say anything. I'll just leave it at that. You can't say anything. Because what I was going to say is that if you're born in Quebec, I think you are politically incorrect, but I like it. Because I like it when people just say it as it is. I hate having to tiptoe over all these things.
We're too old. You know what? Last night, I know I'm politically incorrect, and everybody listening to this, I apologize. Last night at my talk, right, I spoke last night at the Vaughan Real Estate Investment Club, one of your buddies or former buddies, and somebody came up to me and said exactly the same thing. You're politically incorrect, and I love it. Don't change.
Oh boy.
I can't avoid that.
No, you are who you are.
I do me. I don't know how to do anybody else.
I think you come from the heart. It's not like you're.
You know what? We pause on that? Everybody's on a journey, but I am there now. You and I get along because you and Nick are the same. Man, it can happen to all of you listening to speak from the heart, do yourself. And, it's an evolution. Some of us, I'm a late bloomer, but man, I'm there now. And when I do what I do, whether I teach or I speak, it's so empowering. It's such a nice place. And to be honest with you, that's that trip I want to talk to you about, because I need to transfer that ability when I teach and when I do this stuff like, teaching real estate and investing in apartment building. I need to transfer that in all areas of my life. But I think I'm on the verge of a breakthrough. But let's leave that at the end.
Wait. That's interesting to me because you feel like you're not fully speaking from the heart in some area.
I don't get that feeling of full coherence everywhere in all fields of my life. So I need to...
Like congruence, probably.
Congruence. Thank you, the word. Yeah. I need to transfer that feeling in this particular thing. It's that phenomenon. You and I, before we started recording the Malcolm Gladwell book, The Outliers, right? When you do something for over 10,000 hours, like the Beatles and all those examples of sports guys, you become very good at it. That's where, I have reached that when it comes to what I do as an investor, despite the fact my portfolio is suffering because of factors external to me, right? The economy. I don't control an Alberta economy, but I know my stuff very well from my background at CMHC and all of that. So when I do these things, these trainings, speaking, it like I was telling you, I'm in a state of flow, in the zone that they call athletes, right? I just need to figure out to transfer that in other areas of my life. But I do a lot of personal development like you do and all that daily, like having the gratitude rock is one strategy that I don't go anywhere without my gratitude rock. So I'm just saying that's what I'm saying. I need to kind of learn what I've done there, but I just wish everybody could reach that place. It's when I'm in that state, like, you are exactly where you want to be and where you belong. Like, I wish I need to expand that to all areas of my life.
I think you're doing a pretty good job. And I think what comes across listening from you is to you about apartment building stuff is because you speak from the heart. You can almost, not that you do this, so I want to frame this correctly, but you can almost give people advice that maybe doesn't work out for them. But if they know that you're speaking from the heart and that you believe in what you're saying, you truly believe in what you're saying, they will understand and they won't hold that against you. Does that make sense? Because
Absolutely.
Because
I tell the
none of us
truth.
are perfect.
No.
Sometimes I'll give bad advice unintentionally to somebody.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you ever will, but I just mean that happens. But I think when you're coming from the heart, people can figure that out and they can feel it. And even if you give some information that maybe doesn't pan out for them, they really don't hold that against you. Because I know I'm that way with people who I know are. So when I listen to you, I know you're speaking from the heart. And if you told me something and it didn't work out quite right, I never hold that against you because I know you had the best intentions for me. We're getting way off topic, but I truly do believe that. Well, that's the way the world works.
Yeah. Well, I think all of us as human beings need to reach, move towards that state of being, right? And I'm reading The Power of Now, by the way. Have you read that?
Yeah, I love The Power of Now.
Well,
I listened to the audio. Did you listen to the audio?
I do both, yeah.
When he reads that, I don't know if he's got a freaky voice or what his voice is, but when he speaks, if you haven't heard this is Eckhart Tolle's stuff, and that gong that goes off at the beginning of every chapter.
I don't like that bell so much.
that bell freaks me out.
Yeah, it annoys me too.
It freaks me out. When I hear that, I'm driving around, I start looking around like, what is this noise? And then his voice, but I love that book. And his other book with the gold cover, A New World?
A New Earth.
A New Earth, thank you.
And Tom, let's see, since you read these two books, right? First of all, you're supposed to start with The Power of Now. So Eckhart Tolle. And then the second following book was A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. I have my young children, like young adult children, 19, my daughter 19, my son 21.
That's some heavy
stuff. Like, I'll pay you. Read those freaking books, and that's what I recommend anybody, every human being. The one, A New Earth, is the toughest read I've done.
It's a tough to read.
Because it's about your ego.
It's so good, though.
But everybody, I think all human beings should read that. This is like...
I've handed that book out as gifts.
Yeah.
One person returned it to me.
Yeah.
They said,
Tom, ready.
You know what? It was that they said it's too deep it's too heavy. And I read that book. I swear, every page, I felt like I was taking in so much information that I had to like reread the page. It took me forever to read the book because there was so much jammed into every single page. I should go back. It's probably been 10 years since I've read that book. I should go back.
I can tell you that I've had one breakthrough as a speaker this is when I read The New Earth. So the conversation we all have in our heads, right? Hey, Tom, you're not good enough, or Tom, this, or Pierre-Paul, this and that, right? And that's not us. That's not who we are. If you remember the power of now, we are not those voices we hear in our head. We are the watcher of these thoughts. That's the exercise that one needs to do. And that's related to my trip next week. We'll come back to that at the end. We'll finish with a punch. But I want to go back to how I teach. My stuff, like, as you know, I have my next workshop, last workshop in 2019 tomorrow in Hamilton, is experiential. I pull no punches. I don't withhold any information. I tell the good and the bad. I make a point of that. What's very cool about the way I teach is, and I bring so much wealth of experience, both personally and what I saw at CMHC, I tell people the mistakes and all of that, and it's not making money overnight. Like, I want listeners, I mean, like, proper real estate investing, it's not overnight, unless once in a while you hit a home run, which is cool. And I've got lots of examples of that, but you need to know how to find these gems, right? But overall, I teach the same way, with the good and the bad. Have students that come and share the graduate students who are successful, because people do take action, share that. So it's very much the same way, providing the full gamut of truth and the good and the bad. So that's how my workshop are designed, to give that to people, shorten their learning curves by years, and hopefully prevent them from making costly mistakes. Because the world of multifamily, right, it's a lot of dollars, right? Big
you
amounts.
realize you started with Eckhart Tolle and you took it to multi-unit investing. Only certain people can take start with Eckhart Tolle and take it to multi-unit. No, but it's valuable. Listen, since we're on that topic, you do your workshops 3 times a year. I want to come back to some questions about commercial investing, but the workshops that you do, are they 2 times a year or 3 times a year?
Well,
4 times, different parts of the country. Help me out. Where?
I did my very first one in Vancouver.
How did that go?
Very well. 9.64 is out of 10 is what the students' evaluation said. I think I did okay.
Yeah, no, that's pretty
like
good.
3 years in a
and
row.
Is
above
Vancouver
9.
a big multi-unit rental property market? Multi-unit.
Well, no, you cannot afford. So people that take the workshop are not going to buy in.
Okay, so they're in Vancouver, but they might be buying elsewhere.
Do you know
in
how
Canada.
much a door we're looking at in Vancouver,
No.
Lower Mainland? You're looking about bare minimum. If you're lucky, if you can find something for $300,000 a door. So we're talking $400,000 or $500,000 a door. Cap rates are ridiculous. I won't even go there. So people.
What is the cap rate? I'm too curious.
It's going to be about 3.5.
Wow. Got it.
But
what has happened to cap rates in Alberta? Because rents have come.
They've gone up.
They have gone up, even though rents have come down. They've managed to go up.
Okay, I said this last
You know what I
night.
mean? Because
I do.
Because
of
rents
course
are coming down, property prices.
Technically, that's how it should work. Cap rates should be increasing,
Yes.
right? Because valuations.
But when you said rents came down, I'm like, I wonder if cap rates are stable.
Okay, I taught this. Obviously, this is part of what I teach.
Okay.
Cap rates, like valuation approaches. First of all, they're called approaches. Okay, it's not the science of valuation. If you recall, there's like 3 valuation approaches: the cost approach, cost of building buildings.
I forgot all this.
Then the
You're
one
right.
that exactly. Then of course the second valuation approach, not the science of valuation, is obviously the the sales comparison approach, which a lot of your listeners are probably investing in small rental properties. That's when you get a CMA, comparative market analysis. One column you have the subject property, then you have comparable sales. So we use that for multifamily a little bit in terms of compares value per door, or the cap rate of one property with recent comps, other caps rates from recent comparables.
Okay.
But the hill that CMHC or banks will die, income capitalization approach, right? Whereby the NOI derives, the values derived out of the NOI, net operating income. All right. But these are approaches, Tom. They're flawed in themselves, but people will use an easy mathematical formula such as the income capitalization approach, because it's an easy one for banks. It's a divide NOI by prevailing market cap rate.
I almost hate the way people talk about it so easily like that. Like, what's the cap?
No,
what's the cap?
Here's the thing. I told people last night, don't you freaking get hung up. Can I talk like this on your show?
Of course.
Okay.
I think you were saying worse things half an hour ago. No,
okay,
you're good.
right.
You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
I was
You
saying
said
to
nothing
people,
poorly.
don't get hung up. I have one slide. It's got a you go to a Leafs game, and when they score, you got the red light flashing. Well, I've got one slide that says, it's with the red light flashing. Well, it doesn't flash. I shouldn't make it flash. Come to think, I'll amend my slide. But it says, don't get hung up on freaking cap rates. Why? You don't get to choose them. We're going to wait a little bit from the topic. I'll come back to in a moment. But don't get hung up on cap rates. What do you get hung up when you invest in real estate, Tom? Come on. There's only one chance.
Well, most people, the price, just straight up the price.
Bullshit.
But the income and the
cash
expenses.
Flow. Cash flow.
The cash flow.
Net,
yeah.
at the end of the day, not even expense income. It's your
most people. I'm thinking from a
flow.
residential, smaller investments. Most people just get hung up on I'm paying too much. I'm paying too much, and we try to get them to think about the income and the cash flow, reducing expenses, that whole bit. Okay, but you're right. In multi-unit, I get it. Yeah, income, expenses, cash flow, NOI.
Okay,
yes.
But the point I'm making here is cap rates. Technically, if you use the way of arriving at a cap rate, they should have come down. In a market where it's all bets are off, it's there's no other real estate market where that would go through what Alberta is going through because of the lack of diversity of the economy and all of that. So what happens is,
I would have thought they would have gone up, not down.
Gone up. That's where. Didn't I say that?
You said down.
No.
Okay,
cap
gone
rates,
up.
Yeah. The cap rates should have gone up. Therefore, values go down, right? Because it moves in the opposite direction. Values per door have come down. People also, a cap rate is less used now as a way of arriving at some valuation. We use more the value per door. So overall, values per door have come down. Because if you do the mathematical formula doesn't make sense anymore because it's such a unusual circumstance. I don't know if it makes sense, Tom, but that's what's going on.
No, it does, because rents have come down a bit.
Yeah.
And the cap rate's not really telling us the true story or the true value.
That's my point.
So now it makes sense. You're saying the valuation approach is the proper way or the better way to be
theoretical way.
Yes.
But now we use more values per door. But they have come down. I'm not going to dispute that.
Yeah,
Of course they have.
So this is the kind of stuff you talk about in your workshops, obviously. So you do a Vancouver one. You obviously do one in Alberta, or
I
two in
did one
Alberta?
in Edmonton 2 weeks ago, and tomorrow I'm having my very last one in 2019.
That's in Hamilton. So anyone listening to that, we're going to miss that. If anyone's in Ontario, the next one out here, is it a whole year away or is it in the fall?
I don't have a new date.
No date. So if they want to keep...
pooped.
I know you're exhausted. But
tell you what I'm going to do about it.
Yeah. Okay. But on these workshops, you do something that no one else I really know. We were talking before we started recording that in Canada, I find it's really hard to find anyone. We were just talking about this. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to find anyone who purely specializes in apartment building analysis in an ongoing way. Like I'll meet the odd realtor who does a little bit of apartment buildings over here. They kind of know a little bit of apartment buildings over there, but I don't know if there's anyone like you in the country of Canada, legitimately, who is educating people on, hey, here's how you analyze apartment buildings, here's how you look at apartment buildings, and who has contacts throughout the country. Because and I mentioned this at Rockstar, we've been helping investors. We're over $1 billion now in helping investors in properties. We rarely find anyone who really specializes the way you do. So that's really a testament to you. You're really filling a niche here that isn't really being addressed.
So
we all need you to keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Please
come to the workshop.
So these are 3 days. So if you're listening to this one, Pierre-Paul's definitely somebody you want to tag along on. We'll hand out your URLs and stuff. I'll link to them at rockstarinnercircle.com.
And it's very easy. Multifamily Investing Canada, MIC, like the acronym, multifamilyinvestingcanada.com, and people can sign up to get an ebook. And when I announce new dates, but right now I'm just finished 3 in the last 2 months, so I'm pooped. So I know no more workshops for 2019.
And do you do any in Quebec, or the laws different?
I will.
Out there?
No, I could. No, same mechanics. What
same
I teach,
mechanics.
by the way,
right.
absolutely.
The real estate transaction law is a little different, but the mechanics of the evaluation.
It's the same across Canada, even abroad, U.S.
Yeah, same.
My
thing
buddy
applies.
that is in the oil and gas industry, it's the same income capitalization approach. NOI is your driver evaluation.
Yeah, these are basically businesses.
Yeah. At some point, I'll translate everything because obviously I'm francophone. That's not a fake accent, by the way. My accent is genuinely from Quebec, but at some point I'll translate.
You could probably do it in English in Montreal. No, you could probably do it in English.
I could do it in English. It's true, actually. Some people have been trying to get me out there.
We have some members that are from Quebec.
Gee, you got people in Saskatoon that came up to me that listen to your
cool.
podcast in Calgary.
If you're listening to this from outside the GTA, we thank you.
Kudos to you.
Listen, Rockstar was born out of frustration of not finding this kind of information, Pierre-Paul. Just like you.
Yeah.
We just thought... Nick and I had spent tens of thousands of dollars on mentors and different things where the people weren't coming from their heart. We got a bunch of U.S. specific information. On Monday, they went back to the U.S. We were left to figure everything out by ourselves. And the stuff that we were taught didn't really apply in Canada. Like we were taught strategies that are good in the U.S. that don't really work up here. So we decided to start Rockstar more just as an exercise to satisfy our own itch. Does that make sense? Like we couldn't find anyone who was really helping people around here. And that's kind of where this was born from. So
kudos to you. I was quite impressed. People in frickin' Saskatoon coming up to me, thanking me for what I said on a podcast that you record in GTA in Oakville. Wow,
it's shocking. Cool is that? I mean, it's shocking.
How
on this
cool
podcast, we have people listening. We look at the stats in the U.S., on Europe, Asia.
Wow.
It's really
Well,
cool.
I got to start my own. I'm working on that. But just go back to my workshop. What I do is indeed unique in terms of credentials. Like I'm not, like you, I'm an active first and foremost. I want to be seen, and that's what I am as an investor. Like I said, I've got a financing application sitting on my desk that I'm going to hand over to the bank on Monday next week, right? So that's what I am first and foremost. But I've seen so much in my days at CMHC. It was other people's deals. They weren't mine, but it's the same idea. The wealth of knowledge and ups and downs, different markets, because I underwrote in 3 provinces, 3 territories, right, at CMHC. So I've got an incredible amount of knowledge.
What are you seeing apartment building owners in Alberta doing? Like you mentioned that, we've all been trained in real estate to have at least 3 months of an emergency fund on per property and that kind of stuff. But if that gets drained down, how are people surviving?
I like the question. Well, so I'm still working on that. I don't have a full answer yet.
Okay.
Clearly, if income is down, you got to work on your operating expenses. All right, so you got to get smart. I'm working with the new property manager. Happens to be somebody that I mastermind with. Very, very brilliant. Somebody like you, very technologically savvy. So you got to lower your operating expenses.
Okay, so
Big
that's
time.
where you're focusing.
Bringing in new technology. You got to do that, right? There's an application, for example, HappyCo, whereby when the tenants move in, it takes pictures of everything, and so when if they destroy the suite, you can do chargebacks, but everything is digitalized. Can I say that?
Yes.
All digital information, and so and we'll do semi-annual inspections versus annually. And if something is wrong, like the stove hasn't been cleaned up, you're going to start charging $35. You're going to get that down to an art. I am suffering. I'd like to. I can't. I don't know how to be any differently. As a real estate investor, I am suffering because of the lower revenue. Right? I can't pay myself, to be honest with you. This is how bad it is. But here's the thing: there's always 2 sides to a story. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Totally.
As an investor, I am getting to a higher level of sophistication, slowly, gradually. So that's why I don't have the full answer to your question. But I'm moving towards that. So I'm also proud of that and grateful. I'm grabbing my little gratitude rock from Lake
this is
Picchu
going to
when I
make
say
you,
that.
you're going to come out of the, listen, Pierre-Paul, this week, we had 2 American friends of ours, one out of Chicago, Preston Letts, and Rob Minton out of Cleveland. These guys we've known for some years. They both had big real estate operations going on in each of those cities in 2006, 2007, then 2008 and 2009. And it hit them quite hard. But one of them changed from doing real estate brokerage type investment and being an investor himself into a property management company because he had to survive. So he managed to find a niche, becoming a property management company himself. He grew that business so big that 2 years ago he sold it. So out of the depths of despair, he really was able to create another entire business that he sold for huge value 2 years ago. And Rob Minton has been able to survive that correction in the U.S. through a combination of strategic defaulting. What they did down there is that things got so bad, they chose to stop paying the bank on some properties as a survival. This is how bad things got. They said, you're not foreclosing on me yet, but I'm going to collect rent. I know this sounds brutal, but this is what they did. They collected rent and they chose to stop paying the bank, knowing that the banks were so backlogged that it would take a year or 2 years, and it was the only way they were able to survive. Because then they kept that money. Then when they finally lost the houses, at least they had a few years of income. Can you imagine? That's how bad things got. They were calling it strategic defaulting, meaning that they were proactively choosing to lose
do what you gotta
properties
do.
and then going proactively to the tenant, say, hey, I'm about to lose this property. You're going to have to move out. Things were bad, really bad down there. But they learned a lot. And they learned that the people who bought the right properties that paid for themselves, they actually were able to survive through that. In Chicago and some of the apartment buildings, rents did come down. Outside Cleveland, in some of the single family homes, tenant demand went up so much that tenants actually stayed strong because people still needed to live in houses. So the rent didn't go down at all on the single family stuff. So they both came out of it, not without scars. They both had scars, but they both consider themselves more sophisticated. It's interesting to hear what you're saying because they said they're both more sophisticated in both real estate and in business because of what they went through. I've mentioned this to Nick here for a long time. I said, people in Ontario really feel real estate cannot go down. And our family almost lost everything in 1990. 1990 crushed Toronto, crushed. Our father was flipping properties. We almost, as a family, went bankrupt.
I did know your dad was in real estate too. That's
our
Our
mom was renting out rooms in a boarding house in Toronto for $12 a week, changing the sheets, doing everything in the 1970s. In the 1980s, our father was flipping properties in Mississauga. As Mississauga started to develop, 1990 hit. Right at that time, he had 3 properties. Luckily, sold off 2. One went from $750,000 in 4 months down to $450,000. We almost we couldn't declare we couldn't give it back to the bank because the banks had full recourse. So we would lose not only that property, we would have lost our family home as well. Like it was,
given it as guaranteed.
Yeah, it was dire straits.
Of course.
So we had to try to rent that house out, losing monthly money even when it was rented out, and that's always stuck in the back of Nick and our heads. That like.
It's a good thing. That's
well,
good.
It taught us about starter home. It taught us
Awesome.
about how luxury real estate acts in a recessionary period is very different than starter homes or apartment buildings. So it taught us that you can't ignore the negative. It will happen. There's going to be an Alberta type event. There'll be an Ontario type event. You need to prepare for it so that when it happens, just like you're saying, you're not paying for yourself, but your properties, you're able to you're in survival mode, right?
Yeah.
But if you had owned a portfolio of $5
professionally
million
and personally, in survival mode.
But if you had owned a portfolio of luxury real estate in that type of market, those come down so hard and heavy. And if you're flipping them, you're not getting income from them. You can lose everything in the snap of a fingers.
How do you think I feel? I'm the king of freaking assessing risk factors that they pertain to investing in apartment buildings and mitigating them. But I don't have control over a freaking provincial economy or the oil and gas industry.
It's interesting to hear what you're saying because you've gotten into oil and gas the way we've gotten into interest rates and the global macroeconomic because our family was sideswiped in 1990 badly.
Very
and then
perceptive.
again in 2008, this happened to us. Nick and I thought, why are we the only variable we cannot control right now is the economy around us. We need to have a better understanding of the whole world,
Tom,
because it affects
bullseye,
us here.
man.
Yeah,
this is freaking bullseye. I wish we could have a beer now because you just made my day by saying what you just said. I would not have had this information. I was blindsided by the oil and gas industry because, it's like a real estate market. You got a bit of appreciation, pay your principal down, and everything's honky-dory. And I was caught off guard, and now this will never happen because now Pierre-Paul has a better understanding. I've got a whole freaking folder here.
As you hold those papers in the air and slam them down on the desk.
You're right. So fantastic for you to be that perceptive, Tom, to get that right.
But I'll also tell you something.
Ask me how I'm going to mitigate that risk. Now, once bitten, twice shy. How am I going to mitigate that risk in Alberta? Tell me how I'm going to, what lessons I've learned. You want to ask me that question?
No.
First of all, because we're so dependent, so these are the lessons. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So yes, I'm monitoring the oil and gas like never before so that I can mitigate my risk because every risk can be mitigated, right? I'm a former CMHC freaking underwriter. I didn't see this one coming. Guess what? All my former colleagues at CMHC, whom I met at a conference in Edmonton, apartment
what
conference,
are they saying?
They wouldn't have known this. Nobody. Even oil and gas people that I hang out with, some of them second generation of money.
Much, right?
Exactly. So. But now I will see the signs a lot sooner and maybe be able to react faster. Plus, by integrating technology, real-time technology, where you have access to the numbers, right? Because there's always a delay, right? You collect the rents at the beginning of the month, and then your property management does the numbers. It takes a few weeks, so we're going to have
a few
ideally,
weeks if you're lucky, yeah.
So, but in a better world with better technology, we're going to have that information in real time. So, we're going to be able to use it better to manage those risks. Okay, the market risk aspect of it. The other thing I did in Alberta, when rents were going up like crazy, as you know, we don't have a restrictive landlord-tenant legislation, so you could increase your rents by whatever the market could bear. And man, I can tell you in a span of, I think, from 2003 to 2014, rents went up by about 44% in Alberta.
Everyone in Ontario was just saying, what is happening out there?
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was okay to go to 85% loan to value, right? To over leverage. Now, ask me, I'm refinancing this deal next week. I'm going 65% loan to value
so
now.
You're super conservative now.
And now, as you know, as I teach this stuff, because I'm always doing this and teaching, right? I come up with new tools. Now I have a full flow chart. Like, it's amazing. It starts with, what are your investment goals? Like every deal that you have, people say, "What? I want money." Okay, well, borrow less, right? You know, your loan payments are going to be lower, so you end up with more cash, but your cash on cash return is going to suffer. What is it that you want? I, as an instructor, teach the mechanics of how to do these things, but then at the end of the day, as an investor, you need to figure this out for yourself, because it comes the time. So it starts with you, your investment goals as an investor, and then at the end of the day, you got to decide what's the loan amount going to be, how much borrowing, how much financing am I going to get, and that's when you connect these two things. So my first box and that beautiful flow chart, and I think people saw it in the webinar that I sent you guys.
Cool.
So very cool. And then so starts with you and it ends with you as an investor. What are your goals? But so I would not. 65 in this particular case is one of those buildings. I only have one other investor from Ontario, by the way, and we want to pay it down because cost of money is still ridiculously cheap. I think I'm going to get for a loan of $1.1 million, 2.7% interest rate.
Wow.
And I said the cap rate's in the vicinity of 5.5, so my spread is there, right? I talk a lot with my hands here,
No,
touching
you're
your
good.
technical
You're
stuff.
good.
So anyway, so that's one thing I would do differently. Definitely we're deleverage a little bit because of to acknowledge for the lack of diversity of the Alberta economy and just to protect
God,
myself
it gives you a little bit of a
better.
protective layer.
Yeah.
Smart. Okay.
But definitely reducing cost. But I've always been good at that. Like and actually, to be honest with you, I hear a lot of stories from other people in Alberta. I'm known, as you know, and students of mine. So I'm doing very well considering what we're experiencing, because I hear a couple of people had bridge loans in place and then value went down.
Well, and this is why I hear some investors, they'll come to me and they'll say, they'll get all hyped up on how many doors they own. And I say, listen, this isn't a game. From being in real estate for many years, I know this isn't a game of how many doors you own. It's how sustainable are those doors? Because if you have I know a whole bunch of people who over leverage themselves. They they load up on real estate. They do all kinds of joint ventures. They get all kinds of doors, right? Because they're trying to get the most doors possible. And I'm like, listen, how good are your properties? How well managed? How well managed? How stable is the income on those properties? These are the questions I'm very interested in, because just the fact that you have all these doors in a short period of time, if there's a recession or a change, what happens to you? And what kind of promises have you made to some of your joint venture partners? Do you owe them some capital back? Like, this gets nasty. And I've seen it get nasty on people.
And I've dealt with that recently.
I'm like, it's not about how many doors you own. It's just how sustainable is your portfolio. Because if I meet somebody who has two properties, let's call it two doors. I hate even saying the word doors, but two properties. But maybe they're fully paid off. But someone else runs in and say, well, I have 12 doors, but they're fully leveraged. I don't know. The person who has two properties fully paid off maybe is the one that's in the better position, and maybe they're the quote unquote better real estate investor. I tell everyone in Ontario, listen, we haven't had a deep recession here in a long time. None of us are sophisticated investors until we've made it through a recession. I strongly believe that. Even Rockstar Real Estate was founded in 2008.
I tell Nick this one.
Yeah. Yes, I know you're a veteran. I tell Nick, I say, even Rockstar, like, we've been through a recession with our family way back. But I said, Rockstar is a business. We need to actually go through a deep recession and to prove to me we're a real business.
Good for you. Wow.
Because I feel like if we can protect
that's a Stoic approach, by the way.
Yeah, is it?
Just like
I gotta
fasting.
read more of the Stoics.
I'm telling you, I'm going to send you the link.
But I feel like we need to protect the members and real estate investors as best possible, because even though everybody thinks the real estate only goes up, if we can protect people around us and get as many people as we can through a recessionary period, and the business itself through, then I feel like I can finally maybe say, okay, we did something that's decent.
I love it.
You know, but until that recession comes through here, I'm always a little skeptical of our own chops, of our own sophistication. You know, it's just too easy when things are going.
The only problem, Tom, I don't see any recession happening in this.
No, I know. I know.
Your freaking fundamentals are so strong. I don't see that.
Fundamentals are so strong, and people think I'm
in migration. You got.
It's funny because people think I'm crazy. Because on one hand, I say, look at all the stuff going on in Ontario, like it's phenomenal, our population growth. But at the same breath, I'm like, be careful, don't get over leveraged. You know, and people think I've literally had some people walk up to me saying, you don't understand how to make money in this market. And I'm like, listen, I've just seen all markets. You know, I'm not going to buy a property just based on appreciation, something in a triplex somewhere in Toronto, well overpriced, just because you tell me it's going to appreciate. No. I need to be smarter than that, because things can turn on a dime. I can be sideswiped overnight, and I just don't want to be. So now I'm ranting.
You're going to dig the Stoics like crazy.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite? You said, is it the Daily Stoic? Why do I know the Daily Stoic? Is that an email you get, or is that a book?
It's a daily thing that you get. It's amazing. I actually start my workshop by introducing cold showers.
Yeah, I love cold showers. I'm all into cold.
You know, I mean, fasting.
That's part of stoicism.
It's part of it. Right? You can stretch the meaning a little bit, but just like fasting. Right, so that it makes you appreciate food and all of that.
I want to start. I do some intermittent stuff, but
that's not even. I'm going to be doing that. That's part of my
So what are you doing?
punchline.
So now you have your workshop.
All right.
I know I've kept you too long. We're gonna have to
No,
wrap up soon.
love it.
I know, me too.
We're
We
just
can talk-
missing the beer
I know,
here.
I
That's
know,
all.
I know. I have some tequila that I didn't offer you. I should have put the tequila.
You're
out.
touching a weak spot in my heart. Tequila. Arriba. Oh, yeah.
What are you doing to relax after all this stuff? You've been alluding to it.
Yeah. Well, I just I did something very spontaneous. I'm very tired. I'm essentially
maxed out.
I'm burnt out. Okay. I'm still a one-man show. Like you send an email to my support at multifamilyinvestingcamp.com. Guess who answers? It's me directly.
Yeah.
Or when you join my online course and you ask questions, it's me and me and me. I mean, I do have a bookkeeper and a professional accountant, but I'm still not big enough. But I probably have limiting beliefs. But yes, talking about limiting beliefs, I find I'm pooped because it's a lot of energy. As you know, I shoot videos and webinars now. I'm starting to got to learn the technology and all
Traveling.
of that, right? You've got your brother and yourself. That's cool and that's precious.
helps.
And I look up to you. You know, family is big for me in my world as well. But right now, just last Friday, I just announced to my wife, dear, I'm gone in June because I knew, like, by the time I finished my workshop on Sunday night, I'm so fried because you talk to me about being passionate. Look at you, how passionate you are.
Let me hold this. So you went to your wife and said, "I'm gone." She's not coming with you.
That's the first. Yes, she's not.
Whoa, let's hear about
no
this.
kidding.
Let's
I know.
hear it.
I'm
Where
waking up.
where-
You did what? She's not
So
coming
what
with
do
you.
do?
No kids, nothing.
What are you doing?
I'm off to frickin' Mexico. Sayulita, here I come.
What's Sayuli?
It's just north of Puerto Vallarta, a small
Okay.
town on the beach. I rented a small apartment. I'm going for 10 days. I'm going to go to yoga and I'm going to meditate. And I'm just going to press the reset button. But I feel weird not by having my wife. And geez, like 3 months ago, we were in Belize, the two of us. That was high-end stuff.
Awesome.
This is low profile. And just to reset button and rethink a few things. I feel
You need it.
it's a necessity.
Yeah. I agree.
But it does feel weird, right? Because we have families, you and I.
Totally,
But I
yeah.
mean,
You got to do it.
You can
It's-
go
it-
somewhere
but it's
on
for
your
your
own.
It's for
Yeah.
your own health. You know.
Yeah, I find I play it small. We all struggle, all of us, with limiting beliefs, and I just need to figure things out because it's a bit strenuous right now,
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the end of the world. Like I'm still, like I said, I still carry my gratitude rock. I got so much to be thankful for.
Yeah.
But
No, I
it's
think we can
just,
understand. You're hustling
one
hard.
of those things I just need to do, but I feel weird about it. I don't know what's going to come out of it, but I know I want to change a few things, and it's very cool.
It's
Very cool.
sometimes I think those times where you take time for yourself, where you be alone with your own thoughts and really analyze your life. I
We
think
need
coming
that.
back home after that, you will just.
You do that?
I haven't done something like that myself in a long time. Where I did do that for years, probably a decade, is I would get up before my family. And I would spend about 5 a.m. to about 7:30 a.m. every morning reading, writing in my journal with my own thoughts.
I'll be doing that.
And that was a really, really important decade for me. And I've gotten away from that a little bit as my kids have gotten older. I've stayed up later at night. I've needed to sleep in the morning, quite frankly. I just went on the first trip alone with my wife just 2 weeks ago. We went down to Mexico.
Yeah, so some pictures of that.
Yeah. And but nothing myself. And maybe that's coming.
Listen, I'm not sure how to feel. Like literally, I said, "You're doing what?" And this is coming up like in a matter of a week. Like I'm leaving next Saturday.
Oh, I'm pumped
and I'm
for it,
thinking, "Holy crap!
Oh,
like,
yeah.
what are you doing?" Like I think there's a part of me that's afraid, that's scared. There's a bit of fear, but
Oh, awesome! No,
I don't know. I don't know. I'll tell you. I'll come back next time.
I
I
have
come
a lot
for
of buddies who will
podcast,
take away 2 or 3 days themselves and go up and
which
have.
is the kind of a reasonable amount of time. I'm taking 10 days.
10 days is good. I'm impressed.
But
That's
I
good.
thought when I looked at the calendar, I thought, because we were in Belize for 5 days, that was cool. High-end stuff. We had a 2,500 square feet foot villa and all that on the beach and our own pool. But it's not long enough, I found. I found that you just start resting and then so mentally you're not there. And we need to repatriate our space in our minds.
I get where I get that, and I'm with the whole family, so maybe it doesn't sound like it works, but we get to go away to Europe there for a month.
Every year. Yeah.
And I really shut down the email and my phone.
Yeah, well, I'll do that
and
too.
after by the time I'm into my 3rd and 4th week, I'm walking around. I'm relaxed.
That's the point. So, but it's a month. You go for a month.
I go for a whole month. I feel really blessed
and
that I get to do that.
I believe you do need some time. There's a physical aspect of resting.
I feel like my body heals up.
Yep.
I'm not going to the gym. I'm not doing anything. I eat really well. Beautiful fish and wine and espresso.
Yeah. The love, the life in Europe.
The food is beautiful. So I think you need these periods of time.
Well, I'll tell you next time I come back for another podcast. I'll tell you how it went. But I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Everything.
Pierre-Paul, well, you've shared. Listen, thank you for doing this. Give out your URL on one more time.
Yeah, multifamilyinvestingcanada.com. Multifamilyinvestingcanada.com.
Multifamilyinvestingcanada.com. Are you on like Facebook as well under the same name?
I do have a Facebook page. I don't
Pierre-Paul Turgeon, or
I don't even know. Multifamilycanada.com.
We'll
I guess.
find
Whatever
it and we'll link to it.
This is where I have a consultant.
We'll
this is where
find
I
it.
subcontract.
Listen, on rockstarinnercircle.com/podcast on the show notes for this episode, you will find links to Pierre-Paul's stuff, including his website and the social stuff. And I'll collect one or two of these articles. I don't know, something to link.
Just one thing, Tom. One thing I'm committed to, and I'm inspired by you because I came to your entrepreneur summit last year. I have been over the years. So if people join my online community, because I'm trying to emulate you and Tom.
Cool.
I mean, Nick, sorry. I look up to you guys to create that online community. I have stuff that I've been preparing over the years. I'm going to put it out slowly. So it's going to become Canada's multifamily place to go. I do shoot interviews with my graduate students, with lenders, mortgage brokers. Like for the multifamily, this is
so you have all this content you've been building up?
Yeah.
You're just holding.
I just can't be everywhere, but I'm doing it by the end of 19. You mark my words, all of you listening, okay? I will do this before the end of the year.
Okay.
But
so tell us when you've done it too, so we can spread it out there and share that you've done
that. At multifamilyinvestingcanada.com, I've got an ebook. You'll build my mailing list. Here's something. I don't put out a lot of content. Like, emails, we all get emails. Yep. I put out stuff. It's content. It's not stuff, fluffy stuff. So that's very important to me because I don't have time to write fluffy stuff. It's got to have content. It's got to have value.
We're going to see you in politics sooner than later.
No, I won't do it. I don't want to be associated with a bunch of buffoons.
Next time you're in town, we got to chat again. Thanks for this.
All right,
appreciate
thank you,
it.
Tom, for having me. Cheers.
Hey everyone, it's Tom again. So hopefully you enjoyed that talk. We went all over the map a little bit. Just a fun guy to talk to. He's so passionate, I feel like, about everything that he's involved with. It's easy to get excited about the different topics that he brings up. So that's Pierre-Paul Turgeon. We'll definitely have him on again. If you have any feedback for us on any of this stuff, you can always email podcast@rockstarinnercircle.com. That's podcast@rockstarinnercircle.com. Those emails will come through to us. And if you are getting some value from this show at all, if we can ask that you leave us a rating and a review, or just a rating or a review, whatever, on iTunes, that would be greatly appreciated. So that is like the fuel that fires us up to keep this going. So if you haven't done so and you feel we've earned it, we would be extremely grateful for some type of rating or review. If you feel like we've earned it on iTunes, thank you for that in advance. That's it for this time. Until next time, your life, your terms.